because I know there's so many times I can't make a webinar, and I love the fact that you can get replays. But then again, there's also something to be said about being on live.
Yeah.
Because you can ask questions, and it's almost like being there, but not quite, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. You have lots of people coming in right this second.
Yeah.
I guess we'll wait. If you don't mind waiting a couple more minutes, and we can.
Yeah. Let's wait a minute or two. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up? What is this? All right.
Okay.
Nobody
If you haven't put in the chat box where you're coming from or the grade of your students, go ahead and do that right now, because we have tons of people keep knocking on our door coming in. So
yeah,
if you don't mind doing that, that'd be great.
Oh, is that AQT thing?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Someone took the PSAT back in October. Great. Senior, good deal. Wednesday, juniors, lots of juniors.
Guess,
question you're gonna
guess you're.
it's gonna blame everybody.
I think I'm headed.
okay.
I keep hitting the
you
wrong
guys,
button. Sorry.
If you could mute your own audio, that would be great. That would be great.
Houston.
Okay.
All right. We have another Texan in the house. All right. All right, Lisa, you want me to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, let me introduce you, Jean.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, you guys, welcome to How to Get College for Free for Your Kids with Jean Burke. Jean is a homeschooling mom and the creator of the revolutionary and award-winning College Prep Genius curriculum, which has helped literally thousands of high school students prepare for the SAT, PSAT, and NMSQT. Her expertise has been featured on Fox, CBS, NBC, ABC, Forbes Living TV, US Shop TV, Choice Media TV, and the Homeschool Channel. She has been a keynote and featured speaker at numerous homeschool conferences, schools, clubs, college nights, and is a Fox News contributor. Jean currently travels across the United States as well as other countries speaking about how to get to college for free. Don't we all love that? And as a homeschool mom, Jean did not have the financial resources to send her kids to college. When she discovered the SAT and PSAT were the keys to getting huge college scholarships, she began to research the tests to understand how to prepare her kids for those tests. And she discovered that those tests could actually be taught. They weren't IQ tests, but rather critical thinking exams. And after both her kids received full ride scholarships, Jean began teaching these secrets to other homeschool, public, private, and charter school students. Her program, College Prep Genius, is the culmination of more than a decade of research, classroom experience, and SAT expertise. And her daughter has also earned free grad school, and her son earned free law school. Wow, Jean, that's amazing. So you guys, welcome to Jean Burke. You're gonna love what she shares. Get ready to take notes. We're gonna save the questions till the end of the seminar. So if you wanna put them in the chat, I will gather them up, or you can just wait till the end and then ask Jean. So Jean, take it away. So glad you're here.
Anyway, thank you, Lisa. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. I'm really excited. This is hopefully going to be information that can change your life, because that's what it did for us. You know, back being one income family as homeschoolers with no money for college, we didn't know what to do. But once we learned, as Lisa was saying, that these tests were the key, and they're still the key to the day today, which I'm going to show you. They really are the golden ticket to free college. And, you know, it's now been 17 plus years that I've been doing this, and I've had taught tens of thousands of students on how to beat these tests. And even students who've got raised their SAT as much as 700 points, ACT 9 points, a lot of national merit scholars, even students who've gone to Ivy Leagues for free and top 1% on the CLT. So I'm really excited about sharing with you as much as I can cram in this time frame that we have. You might even feel like it's a brain overload, you know, so, but it's a lot of information. But I'm really excited that True North is going to be offering our program at their school for their families. And, you know, we teach for a lot of other academies, and it's been so successful with students going through the program. So now it's coming to True North, and I'm excited. So we're going to get started. First thing I want to talk about is the SATs are not going away. I cannot tell you how many times people will say, well, all schools or most schools are test optional now, or, we found a school that you don't need a test or so forth. Or California is the one that is really kind of funny, is California doesn't need the SAT anymore. Well, let me put all those myths to rest. Certainly when we were all in lockdown, or what we like to call it here in Texas, house arrest, the SATs and ACTs were certainly canceled, and a lot of schools were going to stay test optional until about 2023. Well, on your screen there, back in spring, MIT made a huge announcement, and they said, you know what? We're going back to testing, because it's the only fair way to compare all students. It's not fair for a student who goes to a very expensive high school prep school and someone who goes to a very poor and underserved community school. They don't learn the same thing. So there's got to be something that levels the playing field, which is what we've been saying for years. And so MIT decided to go back to testing. And once that happened, you started seeing all the other schools follow suit. And so when someone tells you things like SATs and ACTs are not important anymore, unless they're willing to pay for your child's education, if they're wrong, do not trust them. Go to people who know what they're talking about. And so certainly if you need scholarship money, which was the boat that we were in, you definitely need the test scores. And even the schools that are test optional, there's about 15% that were test optional BC before COVID. Even then they were more specialized schools, and most people sent either their scores in to get money, or they created their own test, which is again another standardized test. And by the way, when you hear people say California no longer needs the SAT, let me set the record straight. The UC system, which is about 10 schools, is no longer using the SAT right now. Now, there's nearly 5,000 colleges, 4-year, 2-year colleges. And so 10 schools, but guess what they're doing? They're creating their own standardized test. Now, let's think about this for a moment. If they charge $60 a student and over 200,000 applicants every year apply to a UC school system, one of the schools in the UC system, then you multiply that out, that's $12 million. And that's only if they took the test one time. So the key is follow the money, because what they're doing is they're doing like a lot of test optional schools have done, and they made their own standardized test to make their own money. So anyways, they're not going away. Now, one of the questions I get asked all the time is, what is a good SAT or ACT score? And keep in mind, good can be relative to whatever school you're talking about. Some schools, you can get a full ride on a 1240 SAT, whereas another school, it might be a 1350. So that's going to make a difference. But here's what a good SAT score is: the one that gets you what you want. The one that gets you into school, one that gets you that money, that's a good SAT score. Now, one of the other questions I get asked a lot is, well, which one do I take, SAT or ACT? Well, guess what? It doesn't matter. It makes no difference. Every single school, 100% of colleges will take SAT or ACT. It does not matter. It makes no difference. And as a matter of fact, they're about 99% the same test. There's a crossover of information that you can use on both tests. And the SAT was written by ACT writers back in 2016. So you're getting two different companies, but the tests were written by the same people who write the test for both. Now, they're both used for college entrance as well as scholarship money. Now, if a college does prefer one over the other, what they'll do is they'll convert the score. So, for example, a 1340 on the SAT is the same as a 29 on the ACT, or vice versa. But the good news is the strategies work on both tests. Anytime a company wants to sell you an SAT program or an ACT program and a PSAT program, that is a red flag. Run the other way. They just want your money, because you can use the same strategies on all the tests, all the major tests. I've got students who've got, like national merit on their PSAT, raised their SAT several hundred points, and got top 1% on the CLT, all from just one program. So again, no need to do any kind of separate learning or training on these tests. Now, I am a big believer in the CLT. If you don't know about the CLT, put that in the chat box. Let me know. The CLT is the classic learning test. This test has been around maybe 7-8 years now. It's an alternative to the SAT and ACT. And you know, when the CLT first came out, the pushback was unbelievable for them. They said, everybody said, there's no way you can compete against the big guys. You know, SAT has been around since the 1920s and the ACT has been around since the 1950s. But nobody foresaw 2020 when the whole world shut down and SATs and ACTs were canceled all across our nation. Because the CLT was already remotely proctored, every single college accepted it. You know, BC before COVID, they were in a couple hundred colleges, but every college accepted it, and it is giving the big guys a run for their money. And I love the CLT. It's a higher standard test. It's done on your own device, and you can use it for college entrance as well as scholarship money. But also, if you use the partner ID, we have a partner ID CPG 25, which can get you 25% off the test. But a lot of our students are in the top 1% on the CLT. So I do recommend that you check it out. I love the guys there. The whole company is amazing. Now, not only did it become the differentiator during the COVID lockdowns, but if you have a student who is considering going to a top tier school, a selective school, where everybody already has a high SAT or ACT, then this would be the one thing you would want to do different. You would want to add in the CLT because it can be the differentiator that most students that go there, or I'd say almost every student would go to the top tier schools, don't even know about it. So you definitely want to do that. And we have a lot of tips on how to beat the test. So you can certainly go to our website to find out more about that. Now, here's something very interesting. Notice the date on this letter. This is a letter from Harvard. This was sent to Jeremy Tate, the founder, the genius behind the CLT. And notice that's 2019, that's BC, where Harvard says, hey, you know what? We are now considering the CLT. Now, let me give you kind of sort of a minor differences between the SAT, the ACT, and the CLT. They pretty much test the same thing in the reading, basically the same thing in the writing and English section. The math is pretty much the same. The only real minor differences is the SAT has grid and boxes with no answer choices, and the ACT has 5 answer choices instead of 4. Now, there's no science on the SAT or the CLT, only the ACT. But here's the good news. You don't have to know 1 iota of scientific knowledge to ace the science section. It is not about science. And I'm going to show you that as we go along today. Probably the biggest difference is kind of the essays. But again, strategies for one are going to work on the other ones. Now, why do students bomb this test? Why do even students who would be considered very, very smart, 4.9 honors AP classes? That is because this test is not an IQ test. It's not about how smart your student is. It's not about what school they go to, what curriculum they're using. We get lots of valedictorians in our classroom, or top 10% of the school, or in most of our classes. And these are smart students. These are good students, yet they don't do well on these tests. That is because it takes a different skill set. And the skill set to beat these tests is not taught in most schools. So most students are going to approach an SAT or ACT like they would do a school test and probably not get the best score. These are logic tests, and they're testing your critical thinking skills, how well you can answer questions under pressure in a short amount of time. That is the one thing that we all have in common. What we learn in Texas is not what somebody learns in South Dakota or Colorado or Florida or California. So there has to be something, just as MIT said, that levels the playing field, especially for homeschoolers. You know, that's where I'm all about. And so we have to prove to them that yes, we did give those kids those grades. Now, one of the biggest complaints that people will say is, you know, I took the test, I'm pretty good at certain subjects, but I can't finish on time. I run out of time, I don't get to all the questions. That's because these tests are designed for carelessness. They're designed where students know there's very little time per question. So they're going to rush and they're going to make a lot of mistakes. Here's the good news. Every question can be answered in 30 seconds or less. Because once you learn that this is just logic, you know, they're trying to separate the good from the great. Colleges want to know who are the good critical thinkers, who are the ones that will be successful in college. Now, again, Doesn't mean if you bomb the test, you're not going to do well in college. That's not what I mean. But the way colleges look at it is they look at it in a sense that critical thinking is a sign of college readiness. And so they use the test to determine that. And that's why it's important that students, learn that this is a beatable test. Now you'll notice right here on the difference in time, on the far right in red, you will see why most students can't finish. You're talking 36 seconds per question, 52 seconds, 47 seconds. This is so little time. And that, by the way, that does not count any passages that you have to read or transcribing your answers or anything like that. But the good news is all these questions can be answered better, faster, and easier once you learn that it's just about logic. And a lot of times students will think, well, I feel like more than one answer can work. That's not true. These tests are objective. There's only one right answer. And that's why once you learn the recurring patterns, students can beat this test. There are no new questions. They use the same type of questions on every single test. That's why it's standardized. A standardized test has standardized questions and standardized answers, which is why you can beat these tests. And I think a lot of times students don't understand that these questions aren't straightforward. The questions can be purposely misleading and the wrong answers can be very appealing. It's easy to fall for the trick answers because they look like they're right. But in all reality, you're really just stepping on a landmine because they set you up. Because again, what are they trying to do to separate the good from the great? They're trying to find good critical thinkers. Now, the key on this test is you'll learn that because they use the same patterns on every question and every section, is to eliminate the wrong answers first. If you don't, the wrong answers look like they could be a right answer. But once you know the wrong patterns and they do it every time, then you can eliminate those, which is ultimately going to leave you with the one correct answer. And the great thing about taking these tests many, many times is that most colleges are going to take the highest scores. If your child gets a really great reading score on one test and a better math score on another, they will super score them or cherry pick the best scores from different tests and give you an overall better composite score, which is definitely more money. And most colleges will do what's called score choice, which means you can start your 6th graders, your 7th graders, even earlier, 8th graders, because you don't have to send the scores to any college until you're ready. That's called score choice. And the sooner you start your kids, the sooner they can learn the test, have more time to improve. They can gain that test maturity. And that's why we even have 7th graders who score higher than seniors on their SATs because they understand that it's not about high school math. It's about learning the logical patterns. And of course, I'm a big believer in the PSAT. I noticed in the chat box, a lot of people, their junior just took the PSAT back in October. That is awesome. Good job. I'm a big believer. That's what changed their life when my son was a National Merit Scholar on his PSAT. Now, the thing about it is a lot of times people will tell you, well-meaning friends, counselors, Facebook. I mean, they'll say things like, the PSAT is just a practice test. It's no big deal. But the P does not stand for practice. It stands for preliminary. And the full name is PSAT/NMSQT, National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. And so this is why it's important that your students take it for the contest in the junior year, but definitely take it in the younger grades, which we'll talk about. But the College Board makes the PSAT. The same people make the SAT. And so that means if you're studying for one, you're studying for the other one. You're basically over preparing. You do not need to prepare any differently. They both have the same kind of logic and reasoning questions. Now, the difference in scoring is the best you can get on a PSAT is a 1520. The best you can get on the SAT is a 1600. So the scoring is just a little bit different. And the PSAT is a little shorter. It's 15 minutes shorter, one less passage and a little less math. But when we threw away 7 trash bags of college offers, I mean, these offers came into our mailbox every day for about a year after my son took his PSAT. And they were things like, Josh, if you come to my school, I'll give you a full ride. Josh, if you come to my school, I'll give you free honors dorms or study abroad stipends or graduate school money or spending cash. It's a bragging right for schools to have National Merit Scholars. And so they're willing to roll out that red carpet and give you just about anything that you want, just to get you to come to their school, to make the school look better. And this is kind of the excuse me, the predicted PSAT cutoff scores for each state. Every state is different. It can vary a little bit up or down, but it's based on how many students are taking the test and how well they do. Now you can look at California, which is pretty high, a 1480. It's a huge state. But then you look at Washington, D.C., which is a very small area, 1490. That is because if we think about who lives in D.C., it's it's obviously kids of government employees, so it's very, very competitive. But again, it doesn't matter. Anybody can do well. These are kind of the scores that you want to shoot for, depending on where you live. And if you start your kids early, it will make all the difference in the world. It's kind of like the pro golfer. He doesn't just show up on the day of the Masters hoping he's going to do well. He has been on that course many, many times over many months and many years practicing, so that when he does qualify, he knows it so well. So start your kids early. I mean, you can literally take the PSAT 8, 9, and 4th grade if you're going to be doing one of those talent searches like Johns Hopkins or Northwestern. Used to be Duke Tip, but those can set you up for a big award ceremony, your name in the paper and all that. But if you start early on the PSAT, you put time on your side. So taking the PSAT in both 8th and 9th grade for practice doesn't count. The PSAT 10 for sophomore year. The junior year counts in October, which was just, like I said, a few weeks ago. And if you start your kids early, you can get the test booklet back and go through and find out what their weaknesses are. Now, you do sign up at the school, though, not online as on the College Board website. So let's talk about the timeline here. If you have a 6th grader right now or already a 7th grader, look into talent searches. The great thing about a talent search, and I was a big promoter of the Duke Tip program for years. Unfortunately, due to COVID, they kind of put it on almost like a permanent hold. But there's still Johns Hopkins, and there's Davidson, Northwestern, Rocky Mountain. But the thing about the talent search is this: if your student qualifies for it, and you can qualify through Iowa, Stanford, even you as a parent can nominate your child. You can get on the radar of colleges at an early age. And if you take the SAT or ACT, you basically will get a big award ceremony, your name in the paper, there's some state recognition that you can get, and you can start getting scholarship offers in 7th grade. I know people have got full rides as a 7th grader. Then in 8th grade, you want to take the PSAT 8, 9. Again, doesn't count, just get you familiar with it. And then the CLT 8, again, doesn't count, just again, can be used as a placement test or just to get you familiar with it. Then as a 9th grader, again, you want to take the PSAT 8, 9 again. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket if you don't have to, and just kind of, keep taking tests, because it can pay off in hundreds of thousands of dollars of scholarship money. And then maybe in 9th grade, take 1 or 2 SATs, ACTs. But here's the key. If you're going to take an SAT or ACT, there's 3 times a year that you can get your booklet back, get a clean booklet back, and get detailed explanations of your scores and the ones that you missed. It's called the QAS, question and answer service, on the SAT, and the TIR, or test information release, on the ACT. So again, that's the time you want to take it if in the earlier grades. Now, as you get into sophomore year, not all schools offer the pre-ACT, but you can, if they do, take that again for practice. Take your PSAT 10. But now here's something, y'all. I'm gonna give you something really exciting. The CLT, which I love, I've already said that, Classic Learning Test. The CLT 10 is offered 4 times a year: September, November, February, and April. And your student, as a sophomore, a 10th grader, can take the CLT 10 and get scholarship offers as a sophomore. You could get a full ride to college, and you haven't even got to your junior year yet. And now here's the cool thing about this. You could take 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of those CLT 10s, and they take the highest score. So pretty exciting. It's another way to open up more opportunities. And let's say the colleges that offer you money, maybe that's not the school your child wants to go to. That's okay, because now you have that as leverage, because colleges are a business and they want to fill seats, and they're looking for great applicants, the ones who score high, because it makes them look good. So you can take that information of offers that they gave you and take it to another school and say, this school over here has offered me this, what are you going to do for me? Again, if you take an SAT or ACT, do take it one of the times that you can get your test booklets back and also get detailed scores. Now, as a junior, okay, so we've just had the PSAT. So let me talk to those of you who have a sophomore now or even a younger student. What you want to do is you want to make the summer before the junior year, basically the PSAT, their part-time job. Instead of working at McDonald's or anywhere, have them work on the PSAT all through the summer, and then have them take the August SAT and the October SAT right before the actual PSAT. That gives them 2 good practices. That's when it counts for scholarships. And then of course, definitely take the regular CLT and take some more SATs as well. Now, if you've got a rising senior right now, let me give you hope, because I know we had some people in the chat box that said they had seniors. Even if right now you're in the middle of applications and you're turning in, maybe you've even turned in an actual SAT or ACT already, guess what? Most colleges want you to keep turning in a better score. We're going to talk about why they want that. It has to do with their rankings, but you can keep taking and turning in a better score and they'll take the higher score. So we've got a November, let's see, we just had November SAT. We've got a December, there's a March, there's a May, and there's a June one. There are also colleges that will allow you to take the test the day before you start college. So again, don't think all is lost, even if your senior has taken the SAT or ACT and doesn't quite have the score that they want, either for college entrance or money or both. Now, here's the importance of these tests. A 4.0 at one high school is not the same at another. Every school weighs and calculates their scores differently. So the only fair way colleges can compare all students equally is a standardized test like an SAT or ACT. This is what levels the playing field. This is why when they look at you as a homeschooler, and they could say, well, you know, how do I know you didn't just make those scores up? We don't know that. They have no way of knowing. But the test score validates and gives that credibility to your transcript. And so it says, yeah, we did do what we said, even though, you know, we don't need validation by anybody. But here's the thing. What if your student took really hard, rigorous courses and had a certain GPA? And most colleges are going to look at the unweighted GPA anyways. That's kind of the facts. And your child has a 4.0 unweighted. But the kid down the street goes to an easy school and has easy teachers, and he has a 4.0. Well, on paper, you look the same. There has to be some numerical component that's common to all applicants. And that's why they use a test scores. So anytime someone says these tests aren't fair, I point back to the fact that they're absolutely fair, because you want everybody to be doing the exact same thing. Otherwise, how else are they going to compare you? And so this is why, especially for us homeschoolers, it actually is fair. That's why I'm such a big believer in test taking should be a class in every school, every homeschool, because your kids are going to be tested all their life. And test taking skills are not taught in most places because it's not about your IQ or what you know. As a matter of fact, I was in Missouri back at a conference, and I had a gentleman come up to my booth and he said, you know, you're absolutely right. He just heard me speak. He said, I'm an engineer and we get tested every 6 months for our certifications. And they are not testing me on my engineering degree. What they're testing me is on my critical thinking skills, because everybody at my company are different ages and have different backgrounds. So they have to be able to have some measurement that's fair for everyone. Now, you may have a good test taker, you may have a bad test taker, you may have one of both or a combination. I want to kind of give you an idea of why there's a discrepancy. And I have one of each, so I can speak to both. So if you have a student who is a good test taker, he or she just kind of sees patterns naturally, it's probably because they are logically minded. They're just bent that way. And they see patterns naturally. It's kind of intuitive to them. And for those students, they don't necessarily know everything. And so learning a few more strategies can really put them over the top. That's why you start them early so they can gain that test maturity. Or you may have the rule follower. This is the student who's basically stresses over every question, second guesses themselves, overthinks everything. And so for them, it's starting them early will help that anxiety. Now, the great thing about logic, it's not a personality trait. It's a trained skill. Just because someone's more logically minded naturally doesn't mean someone else can't become just as logical. And that's, you can train your brain to be a better logical thinker and do well. As I said, I've had kids raise their scores, 400, 500, 600 points or more, even 700. And obviously they started very low somewhere to get to that many points score raise. So it's definitely doable. Now, the thing about these tests are, if your student takes an SAT, ACT, PSAT, CLT, any of these tests, and when they make a mistake, when they pick a wrong answer, they've actually made 2 mistakes. Number one, they picked the wrong answer. But number 2, and probably more important, they failed to see the right answer. And that's the key. You learn the recurring patterns. You cannot study for these tests. You have to study the tests themselves, how they write the questions, how they write the answers, and then you self-correct your mistakes. And then you become a trained test taker, and you can learn to beat these tests. Now, I've seen it happen time and time again. I've taught tens of thousands of students on how to do this. Now, the key is to practice the correct way. That is to use actual questions by the test makers themselves. The College Board for the SAT, the American College Test for the ACT, this classic learning test for the CLT, the GRE, that's from the College Board and so forth. Now, the key is to practice a lot. If your students are not taking, once they learn the strategies and the shortcuts and the patterns, if they're not taking 15, 20, 25 practice tests, then they're not doing it right. Students who tell me, well, I did your program and I took a practice test and I didn't improve. 1 practice test. I did 10 sit-ups and I didn't get a 6-pack. I don't know what happened, Lisa. I don't know what the deal was, There's no instant success. You cannot shortcut the shortcut. It's learning the patterns. It's practicing. It's internalizing. You weren't born walking. And accuracy before speed. You learn the patterns and then you get faster because you start to see it. And one of my favorite testimonials, I've got lots of them you can watch, but the first time I ever taught in Shanghai, a young man named Nathan, who, by the way, is now a doctor, very proud, but I taught over there, and I taught in May, and then he was a sophomore, and then in October, when he became a junior, he took his SAT and his PSAT. And on his SAT, he went up 600 points. His PSAT index was 59 or 590, depending on which score you look at. And he got a full ride to Baylor, over $200,000. Now, the next time I saw him, I said, Nathan, tell me what you did. He said, Mrs. Burke, I did what you said, which is music to my ears. He said, after your class, I went back and watched the videos. I did all those practicing tests that you told me to do. But here's the most important thing that he said. He said it wasn't until he got to the 15th practice test that he started to see the patterns. It started to click. It started to make sense to him. But what if this guy would have stopped at the 14th practice test or the 13th or the 12th? And he wouldn't have got that full ride. And now money to go on to med school. So RATS means right answers to time spent. You will get faster, but it does take time. And be careful. This is one thing that there are so many companies, so many test prep companies. I don't say anybody's name. I don't speak bad about anybody. But what I will tell you is there's a lot of unethical things that go on with companies, even some of the big name companies that charge thousands and thousands of dollars. You got to know their reputation. You got to know the reputation. What a lot of companies will do is their testimonials are not real. And in the sense that there's a ability where you can actually buy test scores. You can look at a certain zip code and you can find test scores of certain students in certain areas. And this is what a lot of companies do. They'll buy these scores of these sophomores, and they find the students who score really, really high naturally, and they give them free classes. So when those students go the next year as a junior and they score high on their PSAT, guess who gets the credit? The company, even though that student was already a high score to begin with. Now, my take on that is, if you're such a great company and you really believe in what you do, why aren't you offering free classes to the students with the lowest scores? If you really want to prove yourself. And so a lot of times these companies will teach you more math concepts and thousands of vocabulary words and lots of grammar. That's a red flag. You cannot study for these tests. You're studying the patterns and studying it the correct way with the right questions. And even Khan Academy, which is a great resource for subject matter, has free test prep, but they're not going to teach you test taking techniques and shortcuts and how to answer questions in 30 seconds or less. Now, I'm going to show you something really cool. You're going to love this, okay? Because all these different tests use the same type of patterns, I'm going to show you a strategy that we teach in College Prep Genius, which we're excited about teaching for True North. And I'm going to show you one strategy, and I'm going to apply it to 4 totally different tests. And you're going to see why there's no need to go buy a bunch of different programs or different test prep companies that may or may not work. And I'm going to do it in what's called the writing and language section on the SAT. It's called the English section on the SAT. And it's also called the grammar section on the CLT. Okay. This is what I call reverse clones, how to think vertically. Now you'll see at the very bottom, I cited my source. You can actually go to this free test online from the College Board, and you can find this exact question. Now you'll notice that this is called the writing portion, where you have passages, 4 to 5 passages in 36 seconds to 47 seconds to answer them and read passages. Well, notice these answer choices, how they all have the exact same wording, but the punctuation is different. Now you'll notice that the underlined part is the original sentence in a passage. You read that sentence. If it's grammatically correct, you pick A, no change, and then you move on. But if it's not correct, you have to find the answer. But time is your enemy, with 36 seconds on the ACT and 47 seconds on the SAT. So let me show you how to think vertically. Now, instead of reading linear, notice that 2 have a comma after scientist and 2 do not. 3 do not have any punctuation after and 1 does. Now, notice the answer choice that has the most in common with the other answer choices. This is your correct answer. Because what the test makers do is they start with the right answer, but then to create wrong answers, they take variations of the right answer to create the wrong answers. But as your students are becoming trained test takers, they use that to their advantage. Now, that's from the SAT. Now, let's use the same strategy on the ACT. Again, you can go to the source and find this exact same question. Again, we're going to think vertically. Notice after the word began, 2 have a comma. And then notice after the end of the sentence after the word out, 2 have a comma. There's your answer. Because again, they're not testing your grammar proficiency. What they're testing is your thinking skills, critical thinking and logic. And can you answer these questions quickly without doing a bunch of work? Now, this is taken from the PSAT, again, a free test online by the College Board. We're going to do the same thing. Notice after the word is, 3 do not have a punctuation mark and 1 does. 2 have a comma after cappuccino and 2 have a comma after example. So there's your answer. All right. And then I'm going to show you from the CLT. Same thing, bigger, better, and more beautiful. Let's think vertically. 2 have a comma after bigger. 2 have a comma after better. There's your answer. Okay, so that is just one strategy out of many that we are going to be teaching for True North. In that section I just told you, the writing section, the English section, there are 13 recurring problems on the test. Once you learn the recurring problems, and you'll also learn how to answer most questions in 10 seconds, because there's a pattern that they use that occurs about 75% of the time. Now let's talk about reading. Now reading is probably the most hated section because most students are going to treat it like English class, where you've got a passage and then a bunch of questions. If you approach it that way, you're not going to get the best possible score. So the thing is it's not like reading. There are 5 types of questions and they're all answered differently. You've got your line citation question that asks you something like, what was the author thinking in line 12? Then you have your vocabulary use question that asks you something like, what does the word help mean in line 4? Then you have your overall passage question that asks you what's the main idea of the passage. Or you might get what's called command of evidence that asks you about the previous question. Or you may get a chart or graph question that you have to take and basically interpret and extrapolate information from a chart. Now, these 5 types of questions are all answered differently. There's no one size fits all, and they are purposely out of order. Now, ACT has the 3 of these questions. CLT has all 5. And so again, you're learning this, doing the same thing. And by the way, the ACT test the chart, in the science section. So you're still getting that same type of strategies. Now, the key is to not look for the right answer. We want to eliminate wrong answers first. You can do that by understanding that you can challenge every answer choice. There's going to be something wrong with 3 out of 4 of them. What is it that you not like about this answer? And so the key is that most students are going to second guess themselves or overthink the question, because that's how they design these questions. And so we teach you the wrong patterns that they're going to use. Because it's standardized, they'll do the same wrong patterns on every single test. That's why once you understand the patterns, you take real practice tests to really improve. So I'm going to show you the 4 wrong patterns that the test makers use on the line citation question, especially. And it falls under my acronym COAT, C-O-A-T. So in other words, you may have an answer choice that's completely irrelevant to the question. Now, it could be relevant to another part of the passage, but not the question at hand. You might get an answer that's obscure, has some kind of confusing relationship, or an answer choice that adds additional extra information, or one that's just totally contradictory, says the opposite. Now, once you understand that they use the exact same 4 type of wrong patterns on every line citation question, when you look at a line citation question, you look for the wrong answers. You don't want to step on a landmine and pick one that looks like it could work. Could work is not right. It must work. This is an objective test. Now, the math. Now, whether your child loves math or hates math has nothing to do with the SAT or ACT. This is not a math test. This is a logic test using math as the medium. Now, don't get me wrong. You've got to know your basic math, okay? That's important. But what I have heard over the years so many times from students who will say, Mrs. Burke, I love math. It is my #1 subject in school, but it's always my lowest test score. Well, why is that? Well, because it's not a math test. And these students are good in math, but they don't understand the fast ways. They'll go in, they'll work a problem out the long way, maybe spend 2 or 3 minutes on a math problem where they only get about a minute to do it in, and they're just going to burn the clock up, and they won't be able to finish on time. But the great thing about these math problems is they can all be answered very quickly. Now, the SAT has multiple choice with 4 answer choices. And they have one section with about 4 or 5 questions where you don't have any answers. And then the ACT has 5 answer choices. So in that time frame, you've got to be able to find what the question is asking and answer quickly and be able to move on and still have time to come back and double check your work. So when they design these questions, they design it in a way where there's a long, normal way to work out, and then there's a fast way. So let me give you a couple of strategies here. Also, the fact that reading carefully with a critical eye is important. The hidden patterns. It's usually easier math than you think. So what is the product of these 2 numbers? Well, very simple. Just look at the last 2 digits, 2 and 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Your answer will end in 6. And notice our answer choices, y'all. Only one answer ends in 6. No calculations, no crunching of numbers. You are done. Now, this is a strategy that we teach that you can use not just for multiplying and adding and subtracting, but you can use it like when you're looking at properties or factors. If you train your brain to look at the last digits, then very often you look at the answers and you're done and you move on, because they're all designed to be answered very quickly. Now this one here, it says if x is greater than 3, which of the following is equivalent to 1 over, and then you've got 1 over x plus 2 plus 1 over, very long equation here. Well, what are most students going to do? They're going to start working this problem out, okay? Which again could take you several minutes. But if you know and you notice, this is a strategy that we call top heavy versus bottom heavy. So in other words, if you look at the equation in the question, the fraction is top heavy. In other words, the numerator is bigger than the denominator. Now we automatically can eliminate C and D because they're not a fraction. And if we know that it's top heavy versus bottom heavy, we know we have to have the numerator bigger than the denominator, which is going to be answer B. Notice how we didn't do any math. We didn't do any crunching of numbers. We just know what we know. And what you know can help you on what you don't know. All right, now the science section, as I told you earlier, you don't have, if your student has never had biology, anatomy, physics, you can still beat the science section because it's not about science. It's very similar to the SAT reading section. And so we will walk you through very specific science questions. But we have many, many students who got 34s, 35s, even 36s on their ACT by just using our SAT program when we didn't have any ACT on it at all. Because again, that crossover information. So this question here says, which of the following best describes how the two scientists explain how craters are removed from Europa's surface? Now, you've got scientist 1, you've got scientist 2, and you've got a combination of water, wind, and sublimation. So what I did up here was I put an excerpt from scientist 1 and an excerpt from scientist 2. Now, if you look at scientist 1, notice it says the water oozed up into the crater. So if I go down here to scientist 1, notice there's only one answer that has the word water in it. So you could quit now and you are done and you can just move on to the next question. But let me confirm that for you. Look at scientist 2. It says the ice continually sublimes. So if we go to scientist 2, sublimation, B is your answer. And you did not have to know any science to answer that question. So these are totally beatable tests. And the great thing is that your test scores are tied directly to how much money you get. If you're in the same boat that we were in, where we had no money for college, and we found out that a test could be the vehicle to get us there, we went from how in the world are we going to pay for college to where in the world should my child go because we have so many offers. This you may be in that situation where for you, your decision should not be the finances, but it should be the institution. So yes, test prep is an investment, but the average student spends 20 years paying off for college debt. 20 years. That's 2 decades of their life paying for something that they did in 4 years. That's a lousy investment. There's no college worth that. And a lot of students are not getting married, they're delaying marriage or having kids or not being able to buy a house because they're strapped with so much debt. So ultimately, your test scores are tied directly to your scholarship money. Because what happens is colleges get their national rankings based on scores. So the higher the score, the more money they're going to get. 85% of colleges are going to admit and give money simply based on a test score alone. Now, one of the things about the colleges going up on their rankings, when they go up on their rankings, they get more funding, they look better. They can also attract students who can pay full sticker price. And when they go up on higher rankings, what happens is they may desire some very talented athletes for their teams that only need the minimum to get in, which is going to ultimately drop their scores down. So now they need students with higher scores to come in and make up for that. That's why they're out looking for your students. Makes them look good, and they're willing to give you amazing perks just because of that test score. So timing can be the killer of opportunities. Here's the thing, you can't get time back. And one of the biggest things that people will say to me when I'm at a conference, I do a lot of homeschool conferences, and that is they'll say, you know, here we are, we've done nothing to prepare. Here we are, we're at the end of the rope and we're scrambling. you know, or you have people who say, well, you know, I heard you speak 3 years ago, but I didn't do anything. Because what happens is as your kids get older, they get busier. They get more school, homework, part-time jobs, sports, friends, clubs, church, and their time is squeezed with so much on their plate, and the opportunities start to decrease. Now, let me emphasize that if you have a senior, believe me, there is hope. I never rule anybody out, because not only have I seen kids go up 300 points, a senior go up 300 points in a week, you still got lots of time, and you got several more SATs and several more ACTs this year, and even up until the day before college in many cases. So keep that in mind. But start now. Like I said, you can't get time back. And we're excited to be partnering with True North, amazing academy. Lisa is amazing. And so one of the things that you will learn is that test taking is going to benefit them beyond getting into college, beyond getting the scholarship money. If your student is planning on going to post-grad school, law school, med school, then the strategies are going to make a huge difference. These are just some of the tests that people have said to us over the years. Oh yeah, you know what? We use your strategies on this test. Who knew the CPA test, the real estate test? A gentleman came up to my booth in Arizona and he said, you know, I've been doing your program and going through the classes with my daughter, and my company gave us what's called the professional performance security test. He said, our entire company failed the test except me. He said, the strategies that I've been learning with my daughter worked on this test. Who knew? I don't even know what that test is. Or I had a young girl, and again, you can view these testimonials. A young girl in Dallas came up to my booth and she said, just have to tell you that, I've done your program and I did well in the SAT, but I had taken Mandarin 1 and I wanted to test into Mandarin 2. And I took the test, but most of the words, she goes, I didn't know. So she said, I just used College Prep Genius strategies and I tested out as a native Mandarin speaker. Wow, who knew? That is why it is such a great thing to incorporate test prep for your kids at their job someday. Maybe if they're going to go work for Hobby Lobby, they give you a logic test to actually work for Hobby Lobby, believe it or not. And we're honored. We're very blessed to have won. I think we have more awards now, but many, many awards. As a homeschooler, you probably know Kathy Duffy, who reviews homeschool curriculum. She has a great review about us on her website. You can go read her full review on there. You can Google these awards that we've won. These are unsolicited. But we're so excited about teaching for True North. We are going to be having classes starting in January. It is going to be on Fridays. We're going to have an 8-week class. Your kids will have homework they're going to be accountable for. They get to interact. It's a virtual class online, but there's back and forth interaction with the teacher. You're going to love Dr. Ricciardi. He is amazing. He's funny. The kids love him. And we're going to be doing that from 10 to 11:30 Central Time. Your students will also get our online e-course for free as a bonus to be able to go back and do their homework, reinforce with quizzes and all the practicing, and that you get access to that for a whole year. You also get our book, our workbook, as well as our textbook. I don't know if you can see these or not. These will come to you in the mail. But the way that you'll register is through the True North Academy website, which I put it right there. By the way, you can take a screenshot of this if you like. Or if you don't remember the True North Academy link to get there, you can just go to their website and I'm sure they'll direct you to it. But I do know that our classes tend to fill up really fast for the people that we have online classes too, and anybody that we teach for, they fill up very, very quickly. So just want to encourage you to look more into that if you're interested in your kids taking a test and getting higher scores. So I know you probably feel like you've been drinking from a fire hose. It's a lot of information. I really want to encourage you that learning how to take a test changed our life forever. As Lisa was saying, my son was offered numerous full rides to law school, my daughter grad school, beyond just the college and all. So it can change your life. It can change the trajectory of where you're going, and for your kids being able to go, and if higher education is their goal, to become that doctor, lawyer, teacher, engineer, whatever they want to become, then I know that they can do it debt free. So hopefully this really helped you. And I'm excited if you have any questions. I know that Lisa is going to filter through the questions and throw them at me. So I'm ready.
Okay, so Jean, do you mind like stopping the screen share and we'll just take questions?
I would be glad to.
If anybody has any. So if you guys register for the live online test prep, you get all the materials that Jean mentioned, plus the e-course for the year, and we are going to throw in academic advising for free. So you'll have that too, which is a really good deal. And then we have a buy more, save more program. So if you guys are interested in the spring classes, the more you buy, the more you save, and that is all on the website. So you can go to truenorthhomeschoolacademy.com or truenorthhomeschool.academy and find all that information, and we'll put the link in here again for you guys to find it. But Jane, how young can students be to take this class? I mean, would you recommend a certain age, or is there a better time than others? I mean, you mentioned like, you know, start early, but how early for a test prep class itself?
Well, Lisa, thank you. That's a good question. So we have 6th graders and 7th graders and above who do our program. Not every 6th grader is ready. I think as a parent, you kind of know your student, if they're ready or not. I mean, I've even had a couple of 10-year-olds do our program and did well, but that's not the norm. And so I think just introducing just strategies to them in the younger grades, they can start to get familiar with it and lessen the anxiety. If I was going to pick a perfect time, because not every 6th or 7th grade is ready, you know, I would look into like 8th grade, even into 9th grade, because that gives you more time. Now, again, as I said, if you've got a senior, you can still do well. I've had students who've had severe dyslexia, dysgraphia, even autism, that the parent told me that child was told they would never write, much less go to college, become a National Merit Scholar. Because once you understand how to take the test, become a trained test taker, you can do well. But you know your kids better, but start early. You like I said, you can't get time back.
Mm-hmm. And if your kids are if they've already taken college credit, or if they've done dual enrollment or whatever, they can still take the test prep. And actually your kids can still get college scholarships after they're already enrolled in college. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. There are colleges that allow you to raise your score even after you get in. Now, the thing is, every college is different. There's no one size fits all. So as a parent, you have to do your own research. So keep that in mind. Sometimes colleges don't want too many college credits ahead of time because they're looking for the incoming freshman scores. But you know, this is why it's important that some families do what's called the 2+2. That's where they graduate high school and then they do 2 years of junior college and 2 years at a university. Or some will do what's called the 2+2+2, where they'll get their college credit while they're still in high school and then go on and to the university for the last 2 years. If you're going to do that, and that's nothing wrong with that, just do your research, because you don't want them to say, well, we're going to nullify scholarship money because you have too many college credits. So again, every family's situation is different. So just, you know, make sure that there's no one size fits all.
Mm-hmm. Right. One of the things I've been talking to people about a lot is that the college loan companies have been deregulated. So even $10,000 to $20,000 in debt, which seems really manageable for a 4-year degree, if your kids do forbearance or a deferment, it can snowball into debt that is just crazy, that they might take like decades to pay out. So just really be careful about the college debt that your kids are taking out. And this is a great way to manage that for them. Okay, so Charles is saying Keegan is trying to get into the U.S. Naval Academy, and he can't take the SAT or ACT until after January 31st. Is there any crash course he can do in the next couple of weeks?
Oh, well, yeah. You know, I had a crazy story. I got lots of testimonies. I had a guy that one of my people on my customers, I guess, her younger students, 7th, 8th grade, did well and got into college early and got scholarships. Was telling someone else about it at the baseball field and told her, the mom, you need to get this program, you need to do this class. And the kid now, don't tell your kids this, y'all, okay, because this is not normal. The kid just watched my videos. He didn't do the workbook. He didn't do the practicing. He just watched the videos, and somehow it clicked, and he went and raised his score 500 points. Okay, some people are like that. That's not most of us. Okay, most of us have to go through and internalize it and solidify the information so we can apply appropriately. But yes, there's not a January SAT. There's one in March. So you actually have more time. So, and I did read just recently, and I don't know how it holds up, that in the military, they expect you to do the essay. If you don't do the essay, they're not going to grade it. So do double check that to make sure. Okay. But yeah, there's plenty of time. I've had kids raise their scores really high in a short amount of time. Again, it depends on the student.
So, Tom, we'll help you figure out how to get in before December. But I'll be in touch with you. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, so he has to take the test before December?
Mm-hmm.
There is a December test. The first Saturday of December is a test.
So you want another test?
Yeah,
prep, right?
he is taking the test in December. It's the last one he can take.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying
the Academy won't accept anymore after that.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't rule anything out ever, because I know you're talking, what is this, 11/17? What is that, 2 weeks away from now?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I've seen it happen. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I've seen it happen. What I've learned is that students, sometimes things just click. And he may not have time to do all the homework, but he may have time to go through and learn some, learn some strategies and some techniques that can really help put him over the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I'll be in touch, Tom, and we'll figure out something that he can do in the next couple of weeks, because he's a smart guy. I know. So I wanted to just ask your opinion about this, Jean. For the ACT, kind of the sweet spot about the best score is to take it 3 times. Am I right? Is that generally what it is for the test, or what's your experience about that?
It varies on the students. I mean, one student could take it a couple of times and get the score they want, and someone could take it 5 or 6 times and get the score. I don't know if there's a sweet spot, because everybody's so different. And one of the things I will say is, because I hear a lot on like social media, people will say, well, my child is taking the test 3-4 times and they get the same score. Well, you're going to get the same score if you don't do something different. Right. If you keep doing the exact same thing, you're going to get the same results and you're going to get the same mistakes. Mm-hmm. So it really has to do with the student. But I'm a big believer in taking it as many times as you want. Keep taking it too. Keep getting the desired score. You can keep upping the score. They're going to take the highest score, so it's not going to hurt you to keep taking it. Yeah, right. Okay, so does anybody have any other questions? Is Jean teaching this course? No, somebody that Jean's trained is teaching this course. You want to speak to that, Jean? Oh, Dr. Richard, you will love him. You can actually go and watch some excerpts from him teaching. He is so much fun, and he's been teaching for me for probably 15 years, and the kids just love him. He gets the highest marks every place he teaches. Kids write these raving reviews about him because he's fun, he's knowledgeable. He was a National Merit Scholar back in the day when nobody even heard of him, of that contest. Very brilliant person. And so, and the classes, the True North classes, are very interactive. So you can ask him questions. He'll give you instant feedback. What we do, kind of like I just showed you, what we do in our classroom is we'll teach you a shortcut and strategy, and then you'll work some actual problems in the workbook, like I was showing you, the workbook. And then he goes back over every question and every answer and shows you why the right one's right, but also why the wrong ones are wrong, so you can self-correct your mistakes. Mm-hmm. I love it. So somebody's asking if their daughter has enough credits to graduate at 16, but hasn't done any test prep, would you recommend a gap year and just prep and take lots of tests? What do you think about that? I think it's a great thing. We have a lot of students who are in the same situation, whether they're graduating early or whether they're graduating in normal time, who don't have the money to go to college, which is what most of the boat that we're all in is, and we were. What they'll do is they will take that gap year and just spend it studying for the test. Mm-hmm. Because they want to get that free college. They want to get that scholarship money. Now, during that gap year, you can't do any kind of college. Like you can't do junior college or anything like that. But it's a lot of people go on mission trips, or they work or they travel while they're studying for the test. And I will tell you, colleges love gap years. Yeah. They find that those students who take a gap year come in with more clarity of their major. They come in not just coming off and making it the 13th year to them. And they don't, have to babysit them. So it's always a good thing to keep taking the test, no matter, even after you graduate. By the way, there's no age limit. I have adults who take my class because they want to go back to college.
Yeah. Okay, so how much additional homework for each class? It's an 8-week class. How much should they plan on homework?
About an hour a day, each day after the class. And that's going to vary per student and depending on the which lesson it is. But then, of course, once they go through the program, they're going to want to keep continuing on. You're going to retain about 10% of what you hear the first time. So to really solidify, you have to hear it again and again. That's why you get the e-course with the quizzes and the practicing and the checklist for success and all of that. So I would say about an hour, just kind of on an average.
Yeah. So and you can add this to the transcript as a quarter credit class,
Yes.
as test prep if you want to.
As an elective.
As an elective too, yeah. And Becky's wanting to know if this class will be offered in the fall. Yes. So I don't know that we'll have all the bonuses and special deals in the fall, but this spring you'll get free academic advising if you sign up for this January class, and all the bonuses that Jean mentioned from her company. And then also we're going to send you home with a whole bunch of ebooks, Survive and Thrive Homeschool High School. We're going to give you the Young Professional series of 8 books, and we're going to give you our Don't Panic Planet High School e-course. So you're going to get lots of bonuses if you sign up for this today, and then the buy more, save more for all the spring classes. So it's really a great time to jump in on all this because you get a ton of bonuses and lots of great stuff for planning high school and beyond. And you don't have to use all those bonuses for one kiddo. I mean, if you've got a bunch of kids, this is great information for you to really plan high school for them. And of course, if you sign up for the class tonight, or this weekend, you're going to get free academic advising through True North, and that will be me, Tamara Poole, or Cindy LaJoy. We love doing academic advising with homeschool families because we love helping you guys find all the credits that you don't realize are actual credit worthy. So most homeschoolers really tend to undercredit themselves, and we love helping you find out all that stuff. So the academic advising is great because you get one-on-one coaching, and then you get a personalized learning plan that you can either just plug and play with, or just pick what you want and use it as a roadmap that you then, structure however you want for your family. So yeah, we'll be offering this class in the fall as well. And yeah, I would have your senior take it this year and your freshman take it next year, because again, they're test prep strategies that are going to help them all throughout high school and beyond, regardless of what they do. I mean, these are really practical strategies. How long before the bonuses expire? I know we're going to leave them through Monday. And so you're going to have through the weekend to do it, to get all the bonuses for sure. So if you're not on the mailing list, make sure that you get on the mailing list at True North Homeschool Academy. Yeah. Okay, Jean, anything else? I mean, you've covered a lot of ground. I actually took notes again every time. So Jean and I were kind of like booth buddies last year at Great Homeschool Conventions. It seems like we were around the corner from each other, and literally I would just go listen to her and take notes, like test strategies. So good. I mean, just really basic stuff. This is really going to help your kids just calm down when they go to take the test, because really test anxiety can slow them down so that they're not getting the higher score. And a lot of these tests, the ACT is a 5-hour test that they cram in 3 hours. So really it's a race. And when's the last time any of us took a 3-hour test? I mean, probably last time I took the ACT, right? So it's really a long test for your kids, and they've never had anything like this before, where they have to sit down and, so these strategies are really going to help them just calm down and understand how to look at it, how to see it, and how to get the right answers. And get money for college, because there is money to be had. But people want to know that your kids are going to be performers, and so this is a great way to show that for them. So Jean, anything else? Any other wise words you want to leave us with?
Well, you know what? I've been there and I've done that, and I totally get, being a homeschooling parent. And I think taking this one thing off your plate of test prep, you're already doing a lot as a homeschooling parent, whether you're doing all your classes at home or you got some co-ops or some outside classes, And there's so much wrong information out there, but to take it off your plate, where that's one thing that's like, you don't have to worry about. If you're, if your child, and by the way, even if your child doesn't plan on going to college right after high school, which is many people don't, they either take a gap year or they want to do some other stuff, or maybe they're not quite ready to go to college. The great thing about it is you should still always take the test while you're in high school, because if you get out of high school a year or two, you're going to forget some basic math and geometry, and you don't want to do that, because the test makers, the College Board, the ACT company, they archive your scores indefinitely. So you get out, you maybe, and I don't know if I want to go to college or not. Well, that's okay. Still take it and put it on the back burner, because let's say you get out and you for a couple of years and you decide, I think I now want to go to college. Now your score's waiting for you. You don't have to go back and learn some basic math and grammar and stuff all over again. It's all, not that you need content, but there is some math ability, that you lose once you're out of high school.
Yeah, for sure. So this, honestly, I just think what you said about make this part of their summer plan instead of working at McDonald's, because every point can be the difference between tens of thousands of dollars and a full ride. 1 point can make that big difference. And to be able to go to college, we live in a state where our state school system is only $18,500 a year. I mean, that is dirt cheap right now, but that's $72,000 over a 4-year degree. And most people are graduating in 6 years, not 4. Every year your kid is in college is tens of thousands of dollars more. And a lot of the kids are just taking out loans to party and go on vacations. I mean, I cannot tell you how many kids I know in college who are taking out loans to see the world. And really what they're not realizing is with the deregulation of the loan companies, that's really not going to set them up for future financial success. Really getting through college with as little debt as possible is going to be the way to go. And this is going to be worth every penny, every penny. So, Jean, I just so appreciate your time. I love talking to you. You have so much energy. It blows me away every time I talk to you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you guys, this has been sponsored by True North Homeschool Academy. We offer live online classes, and we would love to serve your family as you homeschool. You can choose a la carte classes. You can take the full load of classes with us. We do offer academic advising and the performance series tests, as well as other test prep courses like Latin National Exam test prep, etc. But we are super excited to be partnering with Jean Burke and College Prep Genius, because it is an excellent program. And a lot of the test prep programs on that are available out there are really teaching your kids more subject material. And like Jean said, your kids don't need to know more math. They don't need to know more English to really get the best score possible. They need test strategies. And that's what Jean does so very, very well. I reviewed her book, like, I think a decade ago. It was a long time ago. And I was like, wow, this is great stuff. And you've just gotten better and better every year. So this is really the test prep program that you're looking for. If you guys have any other questions, you can always reach out to me through Facebook or a private message chat. You can always go to truenorthhomeschool.academy and start a private chat with us there. And if you have any questions for Jean, if you get those to me, I will send them on to her. But we really appreciate your being here tonight. And yeah, you guys have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you soon. So if you want to get the replay, make sure you're on the mailing list, and we'll send that out. Like, I think we're planning on doing it tomorrow. So, all right. Okay, guys, have a good night. We'll talk to everybody later.
Night.